When Queen Camilla made an unannounced visit to Princess Charlotte's prestigious school, it wasn't just the faculty who were caught off guard, it was the entire institution of the monarchy. At first it appeared to be a benign gesture, a grandmotherly drop-in masked as royal interest in education. But by sunset, the tone had shifted. Staff members, usually trained in discretion, were reportedly in hushed crisis mode, stunned by what they described as an invasive and off-schedule disruption. Camilla's questions weren't casual. According to multiple insider accounts, she probed into areas far outside the scope of a typical royal visit, pressing educators on Charlotte's academic ranking, social tendencies, and even classroom behavior with a tone more interrogative than interested. It wasn't long before the mood in the school shifted from polite surprise to barely concealed unease. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. In the aftermath of Camilla's departure, the atmosphere among the staff was described as tense and uncertain. A few brave educators confided their discomfort to trusted contacts, claims that Camilla had challenged their authority, questioned teaching strategies, and even made offhand remarks about the way some children are being raised without respect for order. At the center of this brewing tension was Princess Charlotte herself. The young royal was seen noticeably distressed, her usual composure visibly shaken. According to one teacher, she appeared confused and withdrawn for the rest of the day. Others noted that her usual cheer during music hour was absent, and she remained silent during lunch. The shift didn't go unnoticed, and it quickly made its way to Kensington Palace. Within hours, there were phone calls from the headmistress's office to William and Kate's private secretary. But what truly turned this internal ripple into a full-blown royal shockwave was the alleged confrontation between Queen Camilla and the school's headmistress. Multiple reports suggest that Camilla, unhappy with vague answers to her inquiries, challenged the school leader on matters of discipline and authority. "You do realize who her grandmother is," Camilla is rumored to have said, a comment that left staff visibly stunned and reportedly silenced the room. Security staff were said to be visibly uncomfortable, exchanging glances as the conversation escalated. And it didn't end there. That very evening, a short clip, allegedly filmed from a distance by a concerned parent, began circulating in private circles. In the shaky footage, Camilla appears to speak curtly to a young girl believed to be Charlotte, who avoids eye contact and clutches her satchel tightly. By morning, the video had reached select royal reporters. Though it was never officially published, whispers of its existence were enough to fan flames of speculation. Journalists reached out to school sources who remained tight-lipped. But behind the scenes, the palace was already scrambling. The communications team issued a vague statement about Her Majesty's interest in youth education, but insiders knew it was damage control. What had been planned as a simple visit had devolved into a potential PR catastrophe, and it all seemed to circle back to one critical question. What was Camilla really doing there, and why did it leave Charlotte visibly shaken? But to truly understand the seismic impact of Camilla's visit, we must go back to the days leading up to it, when warning signs were already flickering inside palace walls. Before Camilla stepped foot on school grounds, something was already off. Whispers inside palace corridors hinted at a brewing tension, one that had less to do with protocol and more to do with power. According to insiders, a quiet storm had begun forming weeks prior, centered not around Camilla herself but around Princess Charlotte. The word circulating behind closed doors was entitlement, a term reportedly raised by those within the monarch's inner circle. And it wasn't just idle gossip. Certain senior aides expressed concern that Charlotte, though beloved by the public, was being raised in what they called a bubble of exception, shielded from traditional royal expectations. Camilla, sources claim, took personal issue with this narrative. She believed something needed correcting, and she was the one to do it. Camilla reportedly insisted on visiting Charlotte's school, framing it as a matter of concern for the child's future as a public figure. But palace staff were divided. William and Kate, fiercely protective of their daughter, were allegedly blindsided by the request. Initially, they pushed back, arguing that such a visit might unsettle Charlotte and cause unnecessary media attention. But something, perhaps a quiet nod from higher up, overruled them. Camilla would go, and she would go alone. In the days leading up to the visit, Royal aides were caught in a flurry of passive-aggressive emails, briefings, and hushed meetings, all centered on preparing for the Queen Consort's arrival without causing undue alarm. Yet it was impossible to ignore the tension. No one knew what Camilla planned to say, and worse, no one trusted her not to overstep. And then there was the history, unspoken, yet unforgettable. Previous encounters between Camilla and Charlotte, particularly at a private family holiday event, had reportedly ended in quiet tears. Charlotte, still young, had expressed discomfort with how Camilla spoke to her in front of others. Kate, watching from the sidelines, was said to have intervened, choosing diplomacy over confrontation, but the damage lingered. Camilla, according to one palace insider, saw herself as the disciplinarian figure the royal children lacked. This visit, many believe, was her attempt to reinforce that role. Not through affection, but assertion. She wasn't going to the school as a grandmother. She was going as a queen and with a purpose. In the background, speculation grew. Was Camilla truly concerned about Charlotte's development, or was this something darker, a calculated move to assert influence over the next generation? Some royal commentators even questioned whether this was part of a larger power play, especially in light of Camilla's growing confidence in public life. Whatever her intentions, the palace failed to issue a formal statement on the matter, choosing silence over clarity. That silence only fueled the unease, both in royal staff rooms and inside the school itself, where teachers were instructed to maintain full professionalism, but were privately advised that the Queen Consort's visit might deviate from standard expectations. But once Camilla entered the school gates, her presence wasn't just unwelcome, it unleashed a chain reaction no one saw coming. Multiple insiders claim Camilla didn't merely visit the school, she interrogated the staff. Questions about discipline, family values, and Charlotte's social circle shocked teachers into silence. But it was what she said about Kate that reportedly sent one instructor into tears. This wasn't a warm visit from a concerned grandmother. It was a calculated, uncomfortable inquisition, cloaked in royal authority. Camilla, according to several staff members, carried herself not as a guest, but as a force to be reckoned with. Her tone, cold and controlling, cut through the pleasantries with razor-like precision. One staff member, speaking under condition of anonymity, described the room as tense, like being questioned by a superior during wartime. From the moment she entered, it was clear Camilla hadn't come to observe. She had come to assert. She began by zeroing in on Charlotte's academic and behavioral records, demanding to know if the child was being given special treatment because of her royal status. Teachers, caught between protocol and professionalism, hesitated. But Camilla didn't wait for explanations. She allegedly implied that Charlotte was being raised without proper structure, alluding to William's absence due to royal duties and making a chilling remark about Kate's parenting. Some mothers prefer to be friends with their daughters. That never ends well. Those words, sharp and loaded, stunned the room. A senior instructor reportedly broke down in the staff room afterward, describing the exchange as devastating and deeply inappropriate. Yet no one felt empowered to push back. The Queen Consort's presence alone carried a weight that overrode instinct and duty. But Camilla's concerns didn't end there. She veered into personal territory, asking about Charlotte's friends, who they were, what families they came from, how they behaved. Her questioning created an air of paranoia, as if the staff had somehow failed to monitor the princess properly. One teacher, visibly shaken, documented the encounter and later submitted a formal complaint to the school's board of governors. Though details were meant to remain confidential, leaks began surfacing almost immediately. The staff's reaction painted a portrait of a visit gone terribly wrong, one that seemed less about Charlotte's well-being and more about control. What's worse, whispers began spreading among the students. Some reportedly overheard Camilla scolding Charlotte in a private corridor. The words were unclear, but one child told their parent that Charlotte looked like she was trying not to cry. At lunch that day, Charlotte, usually energetic and quick to smile, sat silently, barely touching her food. The headmistress attempted to comfort her, but the damage had already been done. Teachers exchanged glances across the table. No one said anything, but everyone knew something had gone terribly wrong. And while the school tried to bury the drama, what came next made that impossible. An anonymous leak shook the royal press. A confidential internal report from the school never meant to go public revealed damning assessments of the Queen's conduct during her visit. And worse, it painted a heartbreaking picture of Princess Charlotte's emotional state. The report landed in the inboxes of select journalists like a ticking bomb. No one knew who had leaked it, but its authenticity was undeniable. Within minutes, the undercurrent of unease that had rippled through the school halls erupted into a full-blown royal crisis. The report, originally drafted as a staff-only evaluation of high-profile visits, spared no detail. Camilla's presence was labeled invasive, her questions borderline inappropriate, and her demeanor unsuitable for a learning environment. It was not simply a breach of protocol, it was a breach of trust. What jolted readers the most wasn't the critique of Camilla's conduct, but the portrait it painted of Charlotte. Staff had noted an immediate shift in her behavior post-visit. The once confident, expressive child became subdued, overly cautious, and withdrawn. One line from the report stood out: Charlotte appeared anxious, almost fearful. And unlike her typical self, she avoided eye contact with staff and peers alike for the remainder of the day. These were not casual observations. They were red flags. Educators, bound by duty of care, were now left questioning whether the royal family's internal dynamics were spilling into the classroom in ways that could no longer be ignored. Several members of staff voiced concerns regarding the long-term psychological impact of what they had witnessed. But the implications didn't stop there. Once the report hit the press, calls began pouring into the school from concerned parents. Some demanded reassurance, others expressed outrage that the institution had allowed such a visit to occur without additional safeguards. And behind the scenes, the school governors were anything but passive. According to insider sources, an emergency session was convened to discuss the broader implications. Among the topics raised was the question of whether members of the royal family should be granted unsupervised access to school grounds. The debate was fierce, and for the first time, the monarchy's grip on these hallowed institutions began to tremble. It was a stark, almost unthinkable reversal. A royal had crossed a line, and the commoners were calling them out. Inside Kensington Palace, the fallout was immediate. William and Kate, reportedly blindsided by the leak, were forced into a defensive stance. Their press office scrambled to draft statements, but none could fully contain the damage. One aide described the atmosphere as panic behind smiles, a carefully disguised implosion. Camilla, for her part, remained silent. But silence in this moment was not neutrality, it was provocation. As headlines roared and social media exploded, the Queen's refusal to comment only deepened public suspicion. And while the royal institution spun narratives behind palace walls, the outside world had already chosen its side. Charlotte was the victim, and the monarchy had failed to protect her. But while the palace scrambled for damage control, Princess Charlotte's emotional well-being became the center of a deepening storm. What happened in the days after Camilla's visit has left royal watchers devastated. Charlotte, known for her composure in public, reportedly suffered panic episodes, refused to return to school for a week, and begged not to see Grandma Camilla again. Inside the family's private world, the fallout was far more painful than any headline suggested. Charlotte, usually resilient beyond her years, was said to wake in the early hours, tearful and confused, clinging to Kate and asking if she had done something wrong. Each morning became a battle. The school uniform lay untouched. The car waited in the drive. And Charlotte refused to move. Her quiet insistence wasn't defiance, it was fear, raw and unfiltered. Kate, according to those close to her, was inconsolable with anger. This was not a misunderstanding to be smoothed over with polite words. In her eyes, a line had been crossed, one that could not be unseen. She reportedly held Charlotte as her daughter cried, listening to fragmented questions that cut deeper than any accusation. "Why am I in trouble?" Charlotte asked. Why was she angry with me? These weren't questions Kate could answer easily. They echoed through the house, heavy with a child's belief that punishment always comes from failure. Teachers later confirmed what Kate already sensed there had been a marked change. Charlotte's confidence, once natural and bright, had dimmed. She second-guessed herself. She flinched at correction. She spoke less, watched more, and smiled only when she felt safe. William found himself trapped in an impossible position. As a father, his instinct was simple: protect his child at all costs. As a future king, the reality was anything but. He reportedly requested a family therapist, quietly and urgently, unwilling to risk further harm. Sessions were arranged discreetly, the conversations gentle but revealing. Charlotte struggled to articulate what she felt, only repeating that she didn't want to make anyone upset again. That single sentence haunted both parents. It wasn't just sadness they were confronting, it was the weight of expectation pressing down on a child too young to carry it. Behind closed doors, tensions between William and Kate reportedly reached a breaking point not between them, but in how they would respond. Kate wanted distance, clear boundaries. William wanted resolution without rupture. Every decision felt loaded, every silence political. Meanwhile, Charlotte's emotional world narrowed. Home became her refuge, the only place where she felt certain she was loved without conditions. The contrast was stark, a little girl adored by millions, yet quietly unraveling in private. And as these moments unfolded in the shadows, Camilla said nothing. No call, no message, no acknowledgement. The silence grew louder with each passing day, feeding resentment and disbelief. Because while Charlotte was slowly being pieced back together behind closed doors, the absence of remorse from the other side only deepened the wound, setting the stage for what would come next. And yet, even as Charlotte was healing behind closed doors, Camilla remained eerily silent until she made a shocking public statement. In an unexpected media ambush, Queen Camilla gave a brief yet pointed comment. "We all want what's best for the children, some of us just see that more clearly." The backlash was immediate. But what did she really mean, and who was she targeting? The words may have been few, but they carried the weight of a calculated strike, aimed with precision. Delivered offhandedly during a charity visit, in front of flashing cameras and hushed reporters, the statement ignited a firestorm. For those following the spiraling tension between Camilla and the Princess of Wales, this wasn't just an innocent remark, it was a public provocation, cloaked in plausible deniability. The phrase echoed like a thunderclap through the press gallery and exploded across social media before the Queen had even returned to her motorcade. To the world, it was unmistakable. Camilla had drawn a line in the sand. Within hours, royal commentators were dissecting every syllable. Analysts on morning television shows described it as a clear and personal jab at Kate's handling of Charlotte's emotional fallout. Online, the reaction was even more visceral. Twitter threads erupted with fury, sympathy, and suspicion. Some defended Camilla, framing her as a misunderstood matriarch trying to impose structure in a family ruled by modern softness. But the majority viewed her comment as cold, cruel, and ill-timed, a stunning lack of empathy from a woman who had remained silent while a child visibly suffered. The phrase "some of us just see that more clearly" quickly became a trending quote, weaponized in both directions. Supporters of Kate rallied with hashtags demanding accountability. Others called it the beginning of a new chapter in a long-suspected rivalry. Behind palace walls, the chaos was unrelenting. Reports suggest King Charles was blindsided by his wife's outburst. According to one aide, he was deeply displeased and allegedly urged Camilla to refrain from further public commentary. But the damage was already done. Tabloids seized on the moment, branding it the tipping point of a feud years in the making. Headlines screamed about an all-out war between the two most powerful women in the monarchy. Kate versus Camilla, the final battle became a cover story within 48 hours, with side-by-side photos, timelines, and venomous editorial spreads. The media wasn't just speculating, it was orchestrating a spectacle. Camilla had spoken, and the world refused to let her whisper fade. Royal watchers were quick to link the remark to past incidents, private tensions during events, Camilla's reported frustrations with being sidelined, and even alleged remarks made during internal family meetings about discipline and respect. For many, this cryptic public comment wasn't out of character, it was the mask slipping. And while Camilla remained tight-lipped in the days that followed, the silence only served to amplify the noise. Every move Kate made was scrutinized, every smile, every step, interpreted as a response to Camilla's thinly veiled attack. Yet amid all the speculation and spin, one voice remained absent from the noise: Charlotte. But that was about to change, not through words, but through a moment so small and silent that it roared louder than any headline. But behind the headlines, it was Charlotte's next move that truly stunned the monarchy. At her next public appearance, Princess Charlotte did something unexpected, small, silent, but undeniably deliberate. Experts say it was a message, a cry for help, and it revealed more about her inner turmoil than any interview ever could. There were no words, no rehearsed smiles, no grand gestures, just a choice. Charlotte arrived wearing a delicate brooch once gifted by Princess Diana, a piece rarely seen and never worn without meaning. For seasoned royal watchers, it landed like a quiet thunderclap. Diana's legacy has always symbolized vulnerability, compassion, and resistance within the royal system. For Charlotte to wear it now, at this moment, felt intentional. Not performative. Intentional. As if she were reaching across generations, borrowing strength from a woman who once felt similarly unheard. Throughout the appearance, Charlotte remained close to Kate, her small hand wrapped tightly in her mother's. The grip never loosened. Cameras captured it again and again, an unbroken connection that spoke volumes without saying a word. Observers noted how Charlotte's posture shifted whenever Camilla entered the frame. She didn't recoil. She didn't glare. She simply turned away. Calm. Controlled. But unmistakably distant. During a brief family gathering following the event, Charlotte avoided Camilla entirely. Positioning herself behind Kate or beside her brother, eyes lowered, shoulders tense. Body language experts later described the behavior as subtle resistance, a child's instinctive way of protecting herself when words feel unsafe. The public noticed. Almost immediately, social platforms flooded with slowed clips, side-by-side comparisons, and impassioned commentary. Parents especially rallied behind Charlotte, interpreting her quiet gestures as bravery rather than defiance. Hashtags surged in support of her, framing her not as a pawn in royal conflict, but as a child navigating impossible pressure. The contrast was striking, a young girl standing silently, while adults around her battled for narrative control. Each image of Kate holding Charlotte's hand became symbolic, reinforcing the message that whatever storms were brewing, mother and daughter stood united. Behind the scenes, however, royal staff grew increasingly uneasy. The optics were becoming impossible to manage. What had once been framed as a private family disagreement was now reading as a visible fracture between two generations of royal women. Whispers of warring women dominated internal briefings, with aides scrambling to prevent the story from hardening into a public verdict. The concern wasn't just reputational, it was structural. The monarchy depends on continuity, on the illusion of harmony. Charlotte's silent stand threatened that illusion, not through rebellion, but through vulnerability that the public instinctively protected. For Kate, the moment was both heartbreaking and affirming. She had shielded her daughter fiercely behind closed doors. Now, the world was witnessing that bond in real time. No statements were issued. None were needed. Charlotte's message had already landed. And it lingered, unresolved, pressing against palace walls like a warning bell no one could unhear. And as public opinion turned, whispers of an emergency royal meeting began to circulate. Late one evening, black cars pulled up to Windsor Castle under strict media blackout. Senior royals convened behind locked doors. Their mission? To contain a spiraling scandal before it ripped the monarchy in two and protect Charlotte at all costs. This wasn't a formal reception or ceremonial gathering. It was a war council disguised as a family discussion. Inside, the atmosphere was electric with unspoken tension. Charles presided, weary from weeks of silent fallout, while William arrived flanked by aides who carried notes, timelines, and polling data. Kate, steely and silent, brought none. She didn't need papers to make her case, she had lived every minute of the storm. And at the center of it all, Camilla sat unmoved, defiant, and still refusing to acknowledge the depth of the damage. What unfolded behind those ancient doors was not a conversation, it was a confrontation. William, torn between duty and desperation, reportedly demanded immediate limits on Camilla's access to Charlotte and the other children. It wasn't a request. It was a protective order in all but name. Aides close to the prince said his voice cracked at one point as he described Charlotte's change, her silence, her avoidance, her fear. Kate, in contrast, was measured but firm, issuing a warning that stunned the room. If the institution couldn't shield their daughter from internal harm, then she would be forced to take a step back from public life entirely. The threat wasn't hollow. Her absence from royal duties would speak louder than any speech, and the palace knew it. To manage the growing public outrage, top PR strategists were ushered in through side doors, their briefings confidential but urgent. The strategy was to redirect the narrative toward unity, distract the media with engagements, and buy time. But beneath the polished plans lay a bitter reality: the family was fractured. Tensions reached a boiling point when William, usually diplomatic, reportedly confronted Camilla directly, asking her why she had made the remark heard around the world, why she had stayed silent as a child broke under scrutiny. According to one aide, the room froze. Camilla gave no answer, only a tight smile, the kind that says everything by saying nothing. Among the proposals discussed was a revision to the royal visitation protocol for schools. Moving forward, all appearances would require joint parental consent and oversight. It was a quiet admission that something had gone terribly wrong, and no one wanted it to happen again. For Charles, it was a night of reckoning. Between his wife and his heirs, he was forced to choose silence once more. The monarchy, already bruised by public suspicion and past scandal, could not survive another visible fracture. But this time, it was personal. It wasn't just about image. It was about a little girl who had become the face of royal vulnerability, and a family desperate to shield her from a world that no longer respected its own boundaries. But just as it seemed the storm had reached its peak, one final twist left everyone reeling. Weeks later, an anonymous source leaked what appears to be a handwritten letter from Charlotte to Camilla. Short, tear-stained, and filled with words that pierced the heart of a nation. It wasn't just a message to her grandmother, it was a plea to be heard. The letter was reportedly discovered among Camilla's discarded belongings, left behind in a private residence used occasionally for solo retreats. No official palace confirmation followed, but the handwriting, unmistakably youthful, matched prior samples identified in Charlotte's school projects. And what it contained was far more than innocent scribbles, it was emotional dynamite. In trembling letters, Charlotte allegedly wrote, "I'm trying to be good, but I miss my mummy's hugs." That one line alone shattered the royal fade. The child the world had watched curtsy, smile, and wave was now reaching out through pain, longing for something pure. Comfort. The letter continued, brief but harrowing. Charlotte reportedly confessed that she felt scared when Camilla came to her school. Not because of what was said, but how it made her feel. That simple distinction exposed a deeper wound. It wasn't just about protocol. It was about power, presence, and a child caught in a crossfire she never asked to be part of. For the public, already reeling from weeks of speculation, this was the moment the story turned from scandal to heartbreak. No longer a question of who said what or when, it became a matter of emotional truth, laid bare in pencil and innocence. Kate and William were said to be deeply moved and shaken upon learning of the letter's contents. Insiders claimed the discovery left Kate in tears and William momentarily speechless. For them, the note was both a dagger and a mirror, revealing how profoundly their daughter had been affected while they tried to hold the institution together. What had begun as a defensive posture turned personal. This wasn't about public image anymore. It was about repairing trust within the walls of their own home. Sources close to the couple said the letter prompted urgent discussions about scaling back Charlotte's public appearances entirely, until she felt emotionally safe again. And for Camilla, the letter was a reckoning. The Queen consort, whose silence had drawn widespread criticism, suddenly withdrew from a string of public duties. Official statements cited scheduling conflicts, but palace aides whispered a different truth. The backlash was simply too great. Even long-standing supporters within the institution reportedly advised a strategic retreat. Public sentiment had shifted decisively. What once seemed like a family rift now looked like a failure of empathy, one that could no longer be dismissed with royal restraint. What began as an unscheduled school visit became a defining moment for the future of the monarchy and the emotional heart of a young girl caught in the royal storm. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.